afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. How about a round of applause for the great staff here for a wonderful meal? Thank you very, very much. Just a couple of introductions before we get to our honored guest speaker for this afternoon. We're privileged today to have the former Secretary of the Army, the Honorable Louis Caldera, joining us. Secretary Caldera, thank you, sir. And just to tell you how life can change, one can go from the acting Secretary of the Army to serving coffee, the Honorable Patrick Murphy. Thank you, sir. We're privileged today to have two Chiefs of Staff, the 32nd Chief of Staff of the Army, General Gordon R. Sullivan. And unless you've been living under a rock, you know and have heard from the 39th Chief of Staff of the Army, General Mark A. Milley. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the presence of my boss, the Chairman of the Association of the United States Army, Ms. Phoebe Novikova. Thank you. Our speaker today is well known to almost everyone in this room. He started off as a combat soldier, and after serving with the Ranger Regiment, he transitioned to a different style of combat as a staffer for the United States Congress. He then served with the Secretary of Defense, where he met then Colonel Milley. They formed a lasting relationship. He has excelled in business, and in August of this year was unanimously confirmed by the United States Senate as Undersecretary of the United States Army, now serving as Acting Secretary. Please welcome the Honorable Ryan McCarthy.
Thank you, General Ham. It's humbling to stand here today and speak to such an accomplished group. I was particularly concerned about the level of contribution required to be a sustaining member, and that I wouldn't measure up. General Ham assured me that your contributions are non-refundable. Before I begin, I'd like to mention that Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition Technology and Logistics, the Honorable Ellen Lord, is here. So thank you, Ms. Lord, for coming. A great teammate who is stepping in very quickly to help work Army programs, and we're very grateful to have you here. Thank you. I thank all of you for attending and your continued support of the Army and our soldiers, family members, Army civilians, and your sustaining support to AUSA. I'd like to take a second here to talk about General Ham, the man I got to meet back in my last tour in the Pentagon. Outstanding officer, a wonderful human being, even though he is a fan of the Cleveland Indians, the runner-up to my Chicago Cubs, who won the World Series in 2016, in case you forgot, defending World Series champion, who are on their way to the pennant after we take care of the Nationals tonight. While there will be 26 millionaires in Boston in front of a flat screen watching the Cubs tonight, the Boston Red Sox, I'll be here all day, guys. I got the podium for like another 45 minutes. But seriously, General Ham, thank you for your leadership of the AUSA team. And I think the best way to describe General Ham is when he came up and took the podium Monday morning. Secretary Mattis leaned over to me and said, "A soldier without pretense." And I could not articulate it any better, and I want to make sure everybody knew that. So. I'd also like to thank the AUSA team, meeting all the requirements, satisfying the needs of vendors, because you all can be a very demanding bunch. I know I used to be one of you. The AUSA folks manage things expertly, remaining flexible are the hallmarks of a first-rate organization. Once again, you've done a remarkable job and you made it look easy. So thank you very much for all the AUSA folks that are sitting out here and the ones that aren't in here. So thank you very much. We've been at war for 16 years against technologically inferior enemies who created asymmetrical techniques that adapt quickly and cheaply. But we've been focused on the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Competitors like Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran have invested heavily in their capabilities. They've invested in technologies that counter what have traditionally been the strength of the American military, our force projection capability. They've invested in next generation and standoff technologies, but we have made incremental improvements to our legacy close combat capabilities. Russia in particular has invested significant amounts of funds in their anti-access and air-denial capabilities, including cyber, anti-ship, long-range fires, robotics, unmanned aerial systems, and air and missile defenses. And they are exporting those technologies across the globe. To use a sports analogy, Russia and China are training as a boxer, and we continue to train as a wrestler. They've focused on throwing punches from a distance to prevent us from getting close enough to use our strengths, and they are improving faster than we are. The foundation of our Army's superior combat capability, the Abrams, the Bradley, Apache, Black Hawk, and Patriot, were designed over 4 decades ago. It was arguably the pinnacle of the industrial era, before the explosion of the information age. Their development was enabled by fundamental change in the institutional structure of the Army and a continuity of the thought that ran through 6 terms of Army Chiefs of Staff. They've been continuously and incrementally upgraded since their introduction. The problem is that evolutionary improvements on these aging platforms simply no longer offer the degree of overmatch our Army requires. Our modernization strategy is now on the curve of diminishing returns. I'm sure that by day 3 of AUSA, you've gotten word that we are making the most significant organizational change to our Army's procurement system since General Creighton Abrams did it in 1973. Prior to Abrams' post-Vietnam reorganization, the Continental Army Command, established in 1955, was responsible for all the active units in the continental United States, as well as training centers, schools, and doctrine development. The only activity for which is not responsible is combat developments, which fell to the Combat Developments Command. Abrams recognized that CONAR's span of control exceeded that of a single headquarters, and consequently inactivated the command. In its place, 2 organizations were activated to share the load. They were U.S. Army Forces Command, FORSCOM, and Training and Doctrine Command, or TRADOC. Together with Army Material Command, these 3 Army commands have served the foundation of the Army since 1973, organizing, equipping, training forces to conduct prompt and sustained land combat operations in support of combatant commanders, and they've served us well. However, our current ways of thinking, executing, and organizing limit our capability to keep pace with the change with respect to modernization and acquisition. However, our current ways of thinking, executing, organizing, limiting our ability to keep pace with change with respect to modernization and acquisition. We continue or maintain operational advantage unless we outpace our adversaries' development, acquisition, and implementation cycles. Doing so requires to change the Army's modernization enterprise. Most significantly, we're rewiring the organization against modernization to achieve unity command and unity effort by aligning, consolidating, synchronizing disparate processes and elements, folding them into a new command that will report directly to the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army and the Undersecretary of the Army, focus on modernization and future capabilities. We are not looking at creating a new organization that will simply compete against the others. We've done that before, and this further exacerbated challenges. Instead, we are consolidating warfighter, technical, programmatic, and financial communities to fuse the time and investment, clear priorities that are outlined by the Chief and I just this last week. This realignment of responsibilities is not additional force structure. It is a streamlining of work, which will serve as the custodian of our modernization effort to overcome bureaucratic inertia and stovepiping found in the Army's current construct. It will directly incorporate requirements from the warfighter into the acquisition process and allow us to prototype concepts. It will enable disruption, the messy, chaotic work that is the hallmark of truly innovative organizations. It will ensure leadership involvement in the early stages of the process. It will reduce the time to deliver for the new systems we need to regain our competitive advantage before the next first battle. Following the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2016, the Secretary and the Chief of Staff took some immediate actions to improve the Army's ability to evaluate and reform our acquisition process. Actions that are continuing and informing aspects of this new command. And the most significant of these are the reinvigorating the Army Requirements Oversight Council, making it a command-centric versus vice-centric forum, and establishing the Army Rapid Capabilities Office to quickly address emerging threats through early development and the demonstration of technologies. The Rapid Capabilities Office incorporates the streamlined requirements and material solution decision-making process that leads early development capabilities to the field. Through rapid prototyping, fielding the soldiers, gaining warfighter feedback, it provides critical data for ongoing and emerging requirements and material solutions. The Rapid Capabilities Office proved to be a successful organization and provided the initial enhanced electronic warfare capabilities to the Army. These lessons learned from this organization will be used to inform our future modernization efforts, as will combining warfighters and acquisition professionals to establish unity of command and unity of effort under a single roof. These efforts have led to some significant changes in our Army, processes that we have to do more to. And we are implementing initiatives that will increase the Army's ability to move more quickly, provide capabilities to soldiers, while being fiscally responsible with taxpayers' resources that Congress allocates. These initiatives will be outlined through directives addressing specific business practices. The first two fundamental directives have already been signed, addressing the most critical aspects of our challenge, the requirements process and talent management. The first directive addresses our capabilities requirements process. Ultimately, it will be faster, more agile, meeting the demands of ever-changing threats. The goal is to reduce the current process by 2 years from the estimated 3 to 5 years. It currently takes the concept development and ultimately proves the capability to enter a requirements time document. Critical to this directive is the establishment of pilot cross-functional teams, or CFTs. This will embrace horizontal and vertical integration and improve the quality and speed of the material development activities. The concept of development requirement, formed by experimentation and technical demonstrations, to enable the development of a capability document and improve the decision for a potential program of record. They will compress the cycle through an organizational construct enhanced by centralized planning and decentralized execution, involving the warfighter and requirements definition, interpretation, prototyping, and concept validation to deliver the best possible return on investment for soldiers. Each scalable team will be led by a director, nominated from a panel chaired by Vice Chief of Staff Jim McConville and approved by the Chief of Staff. The director will report to the Vice Chief of Staff and the Undersecretary of the Army. Teams will consist of empowered subject matter experts from across requirements, acquisition, science and technology, test and evaluation, resourcing, contracting, costing, and sustainment communities that participate for the duration of the mission. CFTs will also leverage industry and academia to help inform the capabilities development process. The end state is an empowered team, rapidly integrates and synchronizes developmental operations activities that enables the delivery of leader-approved capabilities to the operating force. These CFTs are aligned with 6 signature modernization priorities that General Milley and I approved. Priorities that can be realized in the near and midterm. I have also initiated a reprioritization of money in the POM and an S&T review. This will support the development of these priorities, and I will continue to invest in them with ruthlessly protecting resources across the 5 years Futures Defense Plan. First, a long-range precision fires capability that restores the U.S. Army dominance in long-range munitions, target acquisition, including launcher and radar improvements, railguns, extended-range, treaty-compliant munitions. Second, next-generation combat vehicles, including optionally manned variants with the most modern firepower, protection, mobility, and power generation capabilities to ensure our combat formations can win and fight against any foe. Capabilities such as reactive armor, active protection systems, signature management, artificial intelligence, autonomy, improved power generation, hybrid energy, lasers, kinetics, advanced materials, and man-unmanned teaming. Third, future vertical lift, optionally manned, both attack and lift, that are survivable on the modern and future battlefield. Systems that also benefit from improved power generation, autonomy, artificial intelligence, and manned and unmanned teaming. Fourth, an Army network that is mobile and expeditionary, that can be used to fight cohesively in contested and cyber and electromagnetic environments, incorporating electronic warfare, resilient, secure, and interoperable hardware, software, and information systems, assured position, navigation, timing, and low signature networks. Fifth, air and missile defense capabilities like mobile SHORAD, directed energy, and advanced energetics. Capabilities that ensure our future combat formations are protected from modern and advanced air and missile defense fighters, including drones. And last but not least, soldier lethality that spans all fundamentals: shooting, moving, communicating, protecting, and sustaining. We will field not only next-generation individual and squad combat weapons, but also improved body armor, sensors, radios, and load-bearing exoskeletons. Putting this all together, we must improve human performance, decision-making by increasing training and assessment, starting at the soldier level. This will require rapid expansion of our synthetic training environment and deeper distribution of simulations down to the company level, with simulation capability to model combat in megacities, a likely future battlefield. The second directive enhances the talent management of our capability requirements, acquisition, and resource management workforces to improve acquisition outcomes. It directs that personnel supporting that capabilities and acquisition processes require enhanced training, education, experience, and certification. We will develop a broadening assignment program for DA civilians and require memorandums of agreement to institute broadening assignments. Require memorandums that ultimately institute the opportunities to address science, technology, engineering, material development, and sustainment, as well as fellowships with industry to enhance talent management and develop leaders with a broader understanding of the generation and acquisition of Army requirements. Additionally, we will develop a talent management plan for future program managers to gain experience in science and technology and engineering and requirement contracting. This plan will include a one-year operational assignment between major and full colonel to enhance their understanding of user and operational needs. We have a number of future acquisition reform initiatives in development that will adhere to the four overarching principles designed to improve Army processes. 1, use of early engagement and collaboration. 2, centralized planning and decentralized execution. 3, cost and resource informed decisions. 4, consistent metrics to evaluate success. This is a leader issue. We are adjusting our organization to put capable, proven leaders at the head of every organization who will be singly focused. On top of that, there are 4 people ultimately responsible for the success: the Secretary, the Undersecretary, the Chief of Staff, and the Vice Chief of Staff. This is a merger. We are moving roles from traditional major commands and realigning them to empower the Chief of Staff in order to provide focus and clarity to the requirements process. I've spent the last 10 minutes giving you a history lesson, telling you what the Army needs to do, what we have done, and what we are doing with respect to modernization and acquisition processes. Now I want to tell you what the Army needs from all of you out in industry. We need our industry partners to continue to invest in tech. We are addressing the rules of the road to make it easier. I understand that industry is loath to do business with DoD because we have implemented so many prohibitive rules that isn't worth it. We've discouraged small, innovative startups without the resources to contend with our overly bureaucratic processes, prolonged timelines. Major industry players don't want to do business with us because our budgets, requirements, and acquisition systems are not aligned. So how do we change that? We do it along three integrated efforts. First, we define the requirements of this new organizational construct in line with the CSA's priorities and powered by the Secretary of the Army. The second step is putting our science and technology money against those priorities and to assure discipline utilizing the cross-functional teams to prevent priorities from drifting. The third effort is resourcing these teams to the right people. Talent management is vital to prevent the tendency for silos of effort and pockets of knowledge to form between program milestones. The DoD invests about $83 billion annually in R&D, including overseas contingency operations. U.S. expenditure on R&D is $463 billion. But defense-related S&T continues to decline. Industry investment is 2% below inflation. Yet over the past 5 years, it's bought back $85 billion in stock with the 7 largest companies. We want to change that, and we are addressing this through steps to change our business practices. Over the long term, companies have to find ways to grow revenue and operating income. And you do that through research and development. You do that through finding ways to win new programs and expand the market. Let me be very clear. We want industry to be profitable. We want you to create things that improve society, that advance commerce. We want you to be successful. As an American, formerly in the industrial sector, I want American industry to thrive. I want industry to bet on us. To know when we aren't going to be simply demanding intellectual property that you create while working with us to solve our security challenges. We need to partner better. We need to reestablish close relationships that are only possible with mutual trust. We must not compete against industry in science and technology. We must instead be complementary. In fact, on September 13th, the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition Technology and Logistics, Ms. Ellen Lord, who's sitting down here, signed a memo effectively rescinding a policy requiring excessive documentation for the internal research and development spent by companies working with the department. In fact, she'll be speaking later today, specifically addressing these efforts being undertaken to improve our relationships with industry. Removing this burden is intended to encourage industry to invest the resources and technologies that may benefit the national defense. OSD is rescinding and modifying previous policies that discourage communication between industry. And the Army has put people on both sides and made it much more risk-averse. This is changing and changing fast. We must increase dialogue and collaboration. Our intent is to be active partners with OSD and industry. We need visibility on where industry is headed. We don't want to control it, and we don't want to restrict it. This is a division of labor. There are unique military applications and certain technologies that should receive the bulk of our S&T efforts, while our industry partners invest their resources in technologies without application, including defense. To our industry partners and anyone interested in working with us, we need your help. We need your engineers working against our signature efforts. The world's a dangerous place, and we need improved capacities, new capabilities to guarantee our soldiers are in a position to win in combat. Lastly, I fully understand that there are other factors affecting the willingness to do business with the Army and DoD in general. I recognize that in order to mobilize this new modernization strategy, it will require a major river crossing operation. We must cross the Potomac. The Army has to foster healthy relationships with Congress to secure sufficient, sustained, and predictable funding. We defend the nation with a force based on a strategy, not on a budget. The equation is as hard as we can make it. and on all of us, the constraints of the Budget Control Act and continued resolutions have and continue to be the greatest challenge to both readiness and modernization. I completely agree with what Secretary Mattis said on Monday, that we must continue to explain the situation persuasively and objectively. That if we are compelling, the American people in Congress will have no doubt about what the needs are and what we're asking for. I tell people the BCA and continued resolutions breed mediocrity. And it's true. But we have to explain why. Whenever I do interviews, I get asked my thoughts about returning to the Pentagon and the Army. I tell them that it's the honor of a lifetime. And I'm excited and humbled to have been asked by Secretary Mattis. I tell them that having been on active duty and deployed to combat allows me to appreciate the culture of the institution. And what it's like to be a young person at the tip of the spear and a unit combat in the unknown. I think about the people I served with, particularly those who died, and the families who still suffer their loss. I think about the men and women I've met over the past 70 days while traveling to some of our statesides, posts, and facilities, seeing our troops forward in Germany, Poland, and those in harm's way in Afghanistan. I think about the flag-draped heroes I've seen return to Dover Air Force Base. I think about the families that I've tried to console. I'm completely devoted to being the undersecretary they all deserve and earning their service and their sacrifices. I'm committed to seeing this effort through. An organization as large and complex as the U.S. Army does not implement change easily. It requires resolute determination, conviction, and strength of will. I accepted this opportunity because of my enduring passion for the Army and our soldiers. Thank you all for your time and your attention this afternoon and your participation at AUSA. Army strong.
Thanks, Mr. Secretary. Thanks for charting out the way ahead. It struck me as you were speaking about this most significant structural change. 1973 was the year I first enlisted in the Army. And I think of that span of time, and this is the most substantive change since that time. I don't think as any of us would want anyone leading that effort other than those that you identified, the Chief, Secretary, the Undersecretary, and the Vice. Thanks for taking that on. You also used the word partner a lot in your discussion. And I think that's exactly right. Because I think in order for this substantive change to be effective, it will require lots of partnerships that many of which you discussed. But I think perhaps most essential will be the partnership with the people in this room, the partnership between the Army and the industries that support the Army. The talent that the Army will require is already resident in many of your organizations. And the Army stands to learn from that, grow from that, and I'm convinced that together this change is going to be highly successful. It's going to be good for the Army. It's going to be good for industry. It's going to be better for America. Thanks, Mr. Secretary. Secretary McCarthy mentioned that Secretary Lord and Acting Assistant Secretary of the Army, Stephanie Easter, are speaking later this afternoon. I would encourage you to find your way just down the hall to room 150B, 150 Bravo, at 2 o'clock, 1400, Chief. 2 o'clock this afternoon for engaging with industry, a look forward with two of the Department of Defense's great leaders. We all look forward to that. Thank you all for your attendance today. Thanks for continuing to support your Army, this association, and thanks for continuing to make this event America's premier land power event. Thank you. Army strong.